In three, two, one. Looks like we are live. Hey everybody, Coach Mark here. So in today's Extemporaneous Live, I'm just going to kind of go over the plan for the next 4 weeks in my own training. Last training cycle turned out really nice. Hit a fatigue single of 315 plus 40 and chains on the front squat. Landed a 200 log push press fatigue single. Also decided to get a little froggy in the final week. Hit a 420 SSB squat for a single, as well as a 250 30-degree incline 1.5 board neutral grip press, aka that Elite FTS American cambered pressing bar, done to the 1.5 board style. Really big fan of it. Buy one of those bars if you haven't had the chance. I'm not sponsored by Elite FTS, don't have any partnership with them. It's just, I really like the product. But anyways, let's talk about what the next 4 weeks are going to look like. So originally I had been running my 3 days a week full body conjugate split as one day being dedicated to repetitive effort, one day being dedicated to dynamic or developmental effort, and the third day being a full body max effort session, right? What I'm finding is I would kind of wane in focus come Fridays, so I decided to split things up a little bit. Because if you recall, on my seated behind the neck press as well as my deadlift, I'm training both of them lower intensity right now, kind of using more of an undulating approach that I've lovingly named Thermidor. So we'll call that kind of the prime repetitive effort. So what I've done is the deadlifts are still occurring on Monday, but the Thermidor progression for the BTN press is now occurring on Fridays. So then on Mondays, I'll have a max effort upper body movement, and then on Fridays, I'll have a max effort lower body movement. I hope that kind of settles the preamble. Let's go over what each of those days is going to look like now. So Monday, I've decided my main variation is going to be a close grip axle bench. Now the reason I'm opting for this is just to help target a little bit more triceps. I prefer benching on an axle instead of a barbell whenever possible. It just feels better on my joints, especially the elbows and wrists. And this has been something that's been echoed by a lot of my lifters. So that's a good little longevity trick right there. And what I'm going to do is take a pretty basic approach. I'm just going to hit a top set of 4 to 6, drop the weight 10 to 20% based off how I feel, and hit 2 back off sets of somewhere between 8 and 10. And I'm not doing it like where week 1 has to be an 8 RM, week 2 has to be, a 6 RM or whatever, or not even, because I'm doing lower reps, right, 4 to 6. I just I'll work up, see how I feel that day, or I might hit a weight for 4 in week 1 and just stick with that weight until I can get it for 6, for example, in week 3, and then maybe try for a new heavy 4 or heavy 5 in week 4. Just playing it by ear, allowing myself to have maximum effort on that given day. Deadlift progression there, pretty simple. So, in week 1, it'll be a set of 4 to 6 at 495, then a back off set at 425. Week 2 gets a little heavier. Week 3, a bit more volume. Week 4, we have a pretty big top set right there, somewhere between 6 and 10 at 495. My best 10 RM is 500, but that was on a deadlift bar, and now I'm training on a stiff bar. So I'm really hoping I can get 495 for 10 on the stiff bar by that time, end of April. That'd be a really good little target to notch off. And that would also put my E1RM on a stiff bar, really high up. Because again, not training for 1 rep maxes right now, just building a wide base. Heart shock protocol here, pretty simple. I start with 2 reps of 2 rounds, or 2 rounds of 2 reps at the 150. Week 2, I move into the 200-pound bag. Week 3, I move up to 3 reps for 2 rounds, but back to the 150. And then week 4, I'm back at the 200. Last wave, I was able to get a full 3-round run of the heart shock in at roughly 98 seconds. The goal this wave will be maybe to get that down to about 95 to 92. In an ideal world, sub 90, but we're going to see how it plays out. Then after heart shock, I'm going to do a bent over barbell row using that 2 RD10 approach. So hit a challenging 10, repeat the weight if I can get 12 or more, add weight next time, drop set thereafter. So this is the 2 RD approach for all my accessories here. That's one of the things I'm trying with this block too, is each day for the given accessories, I'm kind of just picking a similar progression for all of them to simplify the process. Now as we move to my full body developmental day, it's going to continue to be the log and the front squat. Now in the front squat, I am dropping the chains. I'm just going to be using straight weight. And what I'll be doing here is a 3-second eccentric front squat. And then for the log, it'll be a 3-second eccentric on the dip drive for the push press. So this is the beginning of a triphasic block. And you can see what I do here is I just drop sets across the weeks. And then in week 3, I also drop repetitions. And then in week 4, what I'll do is I cut the volume in half via sets. And then I allow myself the luxury of doing fatigue singles after I hit these necessary minimums right here. I like this modified approach because it does kind of help me deload, but then I get to push the intensity a bit. And for movements, both the front squat and the log, because I'm not very strong on them, there's not a huge recovery curve. There's not a lot of fatigue generated from me working with it. So I just find it works and I can always play with it. Then I'm going to do a wide grip behind the neck, neutral grip, lat pull down. So, way out here, right? 5 RP40. So what that means is it's a rest pause set with 5 total clusters, and the target is yet 40 total reps across those 5 clusters. And once I've done that, I go heavier next time. So that's what 5 RP40 is. Then for the sled and back extensions, I'm actually keeping this movement. These two movements are the same from the last wave. Only difference is now I'm adding weight using that 4-week 8x8 wave. So in week 1, 30 seconds rest. Week 2, 25 seconds rest. Week 3, 20 seconds rest. Week 4, 15 seconds rest. I'm not chasing load here, just work capacity. I'm really finding those 8x8 back extensions have been very valuable for helping reduce the low back fatigue I receive from log training. And it's my hope eventually I'll actually be in the position, no, that's not my hope, I'm certain it will. The target will be to get to the point where I can actually train the log before the deadlift in the same week and not have it absolutely destroy my recovery. Because I know I've talked about this before in the past, if I train log before deadlift, I'm just cooked and my back hurts for an extended period of time. Then after that, we'll do some incline tricep extensions and the easy curl. And I'm just doing the 350 approach here. So 3 sets, aiming for 50 total reps accumulated across the 3 sets. Increase load when appropriate. Now our final day of the week, we're going to be doing a Zercher squat. I love the Zercher squat, really good movement. And because I'm front squatting earlier in the week, I think the Zercher squat done here is a great second follow-up because I can chase overload a bit, but it's still a nice anteriorly loaded squat variation because this wave on the Thermidor progression for the deadlift is a bit heavier. This is a good way of kind of giving my low back a bit of a break. Also, since I do have the seated BTN press and I use the axle for that, by having the Zercher squat start the day, right, I've already got the axle out, so it cuts down my setup. Because as I've talked about before with Fridays, I kind of just want to get the work done and go home. So I don't want to spend too long. And you'll see that approach permeate, BTN press, obviously, it continues to be the Thermidor progression with higher reps. 2 challenging sets of the dumbbell Bulgarian split squat. Really good lower body all-around exercise right there. Then I'm using that 5 RP40 rest pause progression for the axle curl, rolling triceps, and face pulls. I think rest pause works beautifully in this application for these 3 movements, especially on my Friday, because it lets me get the work done in a quick manner, high quality, a lot of approaches to failure, good intensity. And, speaking from personal experience, when I was at, I would say, my leanest and strongest pound for pound, that was at a time I was training conjugate with a heavy emphasis on rest pause in my accessories. So adapting the lessons from that timeline makes a lot of sense here. Obviously, I don't train as intensely as I used to. Not that that's a good or bad thing. That's simply where I'm at right now. So yeah, this is what the next 4 weeks are looking like. In terms of what I'd like to see out of myself, by the end of this, with that close grip axle bench, I really would like to see myself repping 255 or more in that top set, which I think is well within the realm of possibility. And for the Zercher squat, if we can get that somewhere around 365 to 400 for a triple, I'll be very happy with it at that point in time. It's odd. Normally you do a lot less on a Zercher squat, but I'm a lot more comfortable overloading a Zercher than I am a backloaded squat at this point in the game. I think part of that is mental, but we continue to practice, we continue to improve. So that's just a quick overview of what the next 4 weeks are going to look like. Let me know if you have any questions, comments down in the comments section. The best ones are ones I will turn into videos, and I'm going to go ahead and get started on that Conjugate Codex Volume 2 now. So you folks, if you're on the channel, you'll see me again really shortly uploading that video. Anyways, hope you're all having a